What's up, fellow internet denizens? On November 14th, 2025, I turned 27. Fortunately, I am not talented enough to join the most exclusive club for people of that age, the 27 Club. I've always been curious about this club, not out of fatalism or superstition, but mostly because I'm curious as to why this is a phenomenon. Statistically speaking, this many people dying at the same age should be impossible. Do people only notice because these artists died right when they got big? Is there really a curse? Is 27 just a statistically bad year to be alive? Well, here's what I found. As of writing this, according to Wikipedia, yeah, I know, the earliest member of the 27 Club is Charles VIII of France, who ascended to the throne at age 13 and died on Palm Sunday in 1498 from fainting and cracking his head open. I don't think this is really 27 Club material. You see, he wasn't particularly talented in music or art, and he died well before the 20th century when this phenomenon really took off. I think that while his death is tragic, whichever Wikipedia editor added him needs to think about their decision for a bit. Actually, as I was recording this, the entire Wikipedia 27 Club list got nuked, so I assume they did get their shit together. Anyway, Alexander Levy is the earliest member of the 27 Club that a lot of people seem to agree on. Levy was a Brazilian composer who used Brazilian folk rhythms in his classical works. He died in 1892, and no one really knows how he died. There are a few other poets and ragtime musicians from around this time who are also considered part of this club, though none of them are really household names. However, if you were to ask any stranger on the street who the first member of the 27 Club was, they would probably answer... Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson, the man who met the devil at a crossroads in the Mississippi Delta. Robert Johnson, the man who invented rock and roll. Johnson has a whole world of mythology behind him, a lot of which is probably made up. Johnson was born in 1911, and at some point in his adulthood, he vanished for 18 months, coming back with a newfound talent for the blues. In the years following, he went around to various bars and blues joints during the Great Depression, showing off his incredible talent. If you haven't listened to his music, you are doing yourself a massive disservice. Anyway, Johnson's songs inspired many musicians from Led Zeppelin to Canned Heat, and their themes of loneliness and being hunted were absolutely beautiful. Despite all of the legends, we really don't know a lot about him, including how he died. A lot of rumors abound about how he made a deal with the devil and that's how he died, but most of them stem from either his lyrical themes or the whole evangelical rock and roll bad crowd. One more credible theory states that he died from the effects of Marfan syndrome, a connective tissue disorder that would likely explain his tall skeletal appearance. There's another theory that states that he was caught on the wrong end of a love triangle and his rival poisoned his whiskey. I find the poison theory to be most credible, but whatever the case, Robert Johnson is undoubtedly one of the most notable members of the 27 Club. Now you may be asking, why do so many musicians die at the age of 27 that it warrants a whole club dedicated to them? The way I was told by the big kids on the playground, and I'm sure everyone else heard through the grapevine, when Robert Johnson made his alleged deal with the devil, he cursed all rock stars. Of course, no one I knew actually believed this. I think the only people who genuinely believe this nonsense are either 5 or 95. However, it is worth mentioning here because, again, a lot of Johnson's songs were about being hunted by the devil. I think that a lot of these were inspired by the fact that 1, he lived a crazy lifestyle and was worried that it would catch up to him, and 2, he was a black man in the South during a notoriously rough time to be a black man in the South. Perhaps the idea that he met the devil at a crossroads comes from a combination of his lyrical themes, the fact that he was mysterious and nobody really knew that much about him, and the fact that he disappeared for a while and suddenly returned with a new talent. Clearly he wasn't just practicing music. Nobody just grinds an instrument for an ungodly amount of time and gets better at it. Anyway, let's talk about a bit more of an out there theory, the white lighter theory. You see, a lot of members of the 27 Club, particularly the ones who died in 1970 and 1971, allegedly died while in possession of a white Bic lighter. Allegedly. This has been proven to be false, seeing as Bic didn't produce said white lighters until 1973, after most of the alleged victims died. This is probably the dumbest red herring I've found in my research to this date, or rather the dumbest white herring. Speaking of fire, let's talk about giant balls of gas gas in the sky. Yep, it's astrology time. Now, a lot of people seem to think that the 27 Club is connected to something called a Saturn return, or the time when Saturn returns to where it was when you were born. This happens every 27 to 30 years and is supposed to be a system shock, as Saturn is the planet of wake-up calls and harsh reality. This first return is a signal of transition from young adulthood to adulthood and a sign to take responsibility and commit to your dreams. Frankly, I feel like Saturn returns are a reverse correlation, as your late 20s are a transitional time in your life in most cultures, and a planet returning to where it was when you were born just so happens to correspond with this. It's like saying that the McRib causes recessions because McRibs always seem to be available when recessions hit. Maybe I'm just not getting something here. I don't typically subscribe to Babylonian space math, which I am told is a Scorpio thing to say. Let's look at some real data now. The truth is, there is no evidence that 27 is a bad year to be alive and making music. According to a study by Diana Kelly, the average musician dies at 58. In fact, from a pool of 11,054 subjects, only 1.3% died at 27, and more musicians died at 28. Also, the newer the genre you play, the younger you are likely to die. This actually sounds like it could factor into the 27 Club theory, as all musician members of the club were part of a genre that was gaining popularity at the time. According to sociologist Zachary Donovan, it's purely circumstantial. There is no increase in risk. People innately see patterns as it helps us survive. It's hard to study some of these patterns, especially the patterns that made it into human culture as idioms or superstitions, because a lot of them are circumstantial. I think people started noticing this pattern because these singers all died young and when their genre was getting big, like Kelly's study said. Jonghyun passed right as K-pop was crossing over to America. Rudy Lewis died when doo-wop was big. Jimi Hendrix died when rock was climbing the charts. Christian Pfaff and Kurt Cobain died when grunge had just broken through. The idea of the 27 Club actually started spreading like slime mold around the 90s after these two deaths, just as the internet was starting to become the information superhighway. People who saw this pattern started broadcasting it on blogs, and other people began seeing it. Now, anytime a celebrity dies at 27, they join the club, no matter how unnoteworthy. I remember in 2019, some pitcher from the Anaheim Angels got briefly touted as a member, and I've also seen some rando from the British show Big Brother get mentioned on some lists. I don't think either belong here, but I digress. So, the question remains, am I safe? Probably. I am not noteworthy by any means. I am an alien who talks about critters online. While I do have an alright singing voice, it's not like the world knows about it. Sure, I've smoked weed and I do enjoy the occasional drink, but I know which drugs to never touch. I don't use white lighters either. Though that shouldn't matter. Also, I am in a loving relationship, and if worst comes to worst, my husband will help me through anything. I know he's an imp, but I trust him. Even if the whole Saturn returns theory is correct, and I highly doubt that's the case, I am pretty risk averse, and I will not go out by some freak accident or a sudden realization that my potential hasn't been fulfilled or whatever. I guess if I do go out that way, feel free to add me to a list. Not like I'd be here to appreciate it. I never believed in the 27 Club. I'm a skeptical person, but I'm interested in why people believe things. I think it's safe for me to hope that this year will at least be somewhat interesting. I've been Alien Daydreamer, and I am out. Bye!